what I see, Maurice, is that the ones who are most benefiting from AI today are the candidates.
Well, that's not going to make you popular. Okay, well, no, explain.
I see, honestly, fantastic motivation letters. I see CVs that are perfectly fitting the jobs.
Okay.
Right? So it's great for the candidates, but what it makes is that our talent acquisition partners need to invest a lot more time because we are not leveraging AI to pre-screen all CVs. This is still be done by experts, human experts, right? Why? Because we feel that the technology is not mature enough and we don't want to give this important step of a recruitment process in finding really the best talent for the company to a non-mature technology.
Have you ever noticed that LinkedIn is not an accurate representation of who people really are? Welcome to Season 2 of Leadership Lab, the show where I take you with me as we do a deep dive on some of the most interesting personalities in the life sciences industry today. In order for us to do so, I need you to unlock your phone and just tap the bell. The goal of this is to inspire the next generation of leaders to create value for them and really tell the stories that will allow you to get where you're trying to get to in your career. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Leadership Lab. My name is Maurice, and I'm joined today by Jana Herrmann. Jana is the chapter lead for integrated workforce strategies at Roche in Basel. Jana, can you explain exactly what that job title means?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me, Maurice. Sure. A pleasure to be here. So integrated workforce strategies is the home for all experts that are needed to build an end-to-end workforce strategies. So starting from early in career, the whole area of talent marketing programs, early in career programs, internships, towards recruiting, the whole area of executive recruiting as well, succession planning, talent management, workforce optimization, which is the team building workforce strategies with strategic workforce planning. And then I also have the area of people relations to make sure that we also have the right workplace for our talents to be successful.
Okay, so overall, it's the entire talent ecosystem of Roche.
Correct. The talent ecosystem, excluding leadership development, that sits in a different place. And it includes people relations just to make sure that we don't forget about the workplace.
That everybody's happy.
Correct.
Okay, so it's really about managing the entire inflow of talent in the business and then the movement of the talent within the business and then making sure they're happy. Okay.
Exactly.
How many people do you need to get all that done for such a large company?
Yeah, so we have around, all depends what you mean by how you count. Exactly. Do we include our external workforce? Because I think this is something that many companies have not been considering as much as workforce in the past, right? In our case, we did a lot of work for the entire organization to look at our entire workforce. And what do we need in IWS, integrated workforce strategies, is around 400 people, including externals.
Okay, so 400 people are responsible for Roche, about 100,000 people altogether?
Correct. 100, and if you consider the externals, 160.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's a big job. What I want to do actually now, and what we usually do is kind of go back, and the idea here is that we kind of understand your journey a little bit, to see somebody who maybe would want to have your job one day. What were the decisions or thoughts you had along the way to get there? So let's start with, where are you from actually originally?
So I'm, if just looking at my passport, I'm German national. My parents are German, but I grew up in Brazil. So I lived there for 18 years.
Okay.
That's where I grew up.
So you were born and raised till the age of 18?
I was born in Germany.
Okay.
But then when I was 2 years old, my parents went to Brazil. And I've been there until I was 18 years old. Okay. And then I came to Europe when I finished school and started university.
I didn't know that. Okay.
See, always learning something new.
Yeah, but it's the same. Every time someone comes on here and they tell me somebody I've known for such a long time.
Right.
And then they'll tell me, I didn't know that. Okay. So you also speak Portuguese?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So German, French, Portuguese, English?
Spanish.
And Spanish.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Why did you choose to leave Brazil at that time to come back to Europe for school?
To be honest, it wasn't my choice.
Okay.
You can imagine that when you were 18 and you have lived your entire, I would say, life there, you have your friends and all your activities. It wasn't my decision. So that was really my parents who at that time, I think this is very different today. At that time, the universities were not like, best of quality. There was a lot, sometimes there were classes, sometimes not. So they wanted to make sure that my brother and I get a really good education. And that was the reason why they said, you will have to go to Europe. And of course, it doesn't mean you cannot come back afterwards. But for the education, they thought it was a better choice.
Okay. I mean, that's a pretty big culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
What did your parents do, if I can ask, that brought them to Brazil? Or why did your family move there?
So my dad, he was working for a German multinational company. Okay. And then they were expanding into Brazil. And it was a quite unusual move at that time. But I'm very pleased that he took the decision to do that.
Okay. And what was it like? I mean, you studied where? Where did you go to school?
So I studied in Geneva.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brazil to Geneva.
Correct.
Must have been.
I had to do 1 year in Germany because, of course, you finish school in Brazil, but that doesn't qualify you to go to university in Europe, right? So I had to do 1 year of just getting the qualifications.
Right.
And then I went to Geneva because originally I thought I would like to work in hospitality business because, again, everyone telling me with all the languages you speak, you should go into hospitality.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was just, I mean, did you have a plan? Did you have an idea? Or was it just people said, oh, you speak so many languages, you should go into hospitality. And you thought, well, okay, I guess everybody says that. So, and you're 18, so what do you know?
Correct.
What? So is that what you actually went and studied then in the end?
No, at all. So
okay.
When I was younger, even like teenaging, 15, 16 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought that would be exactly what I want to do. I was someone who also liked studying at school, reading and so on. So I thought, being a lawyer would be great. But I had a lot of people in my environment saying, with the languages, you should try hospitality, you should try. So somehow you get influenced, right? And I said, anyway, I knew I would need to learn French first.
Right.
Because I didn't speak French. And I said, okay, if I go to Geneva, I learn French. I will also explore other options, being there, looking into what other, qualifications could I get so that it's a bit broader than just hospitality. Yeah. And I did an internship when I arrived there in a hotel just to get a sense of what does it mean to work in hospitality or in hotel. And it became clear to me that, yes, it can be great, but it's very narrow. So I decided to go for business administration, which was broader and wouldn't close any doors.
Okay. And you mentioned you liked reading, you liked studying, school. Any other activities when you were younger? Anything that you liked to do?
I was a lot into sports.
Okay. Yeah. Which ones?
Tennis. Okay. And at that time, a lot of aerobics. There was even a moment where I said, I could also become an aerobic teacher.
Like the...
Exactly.
Like yeah. I remember. It's not really a thing anymore. I guess it evolved into something else now, like Zumba or...
Yeah, or now it's people are a lot into yoga, Pilates and so on.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. That's true. I had my first Pilates class on Saturday last week.
I love Pilates. I go to Pilates classes as well.
I was walking a little funny the next day though, because it's like you use these muscles that you don't normally... I was cramping the whole time. Yeah. They would always say, okay, now go on your toes. And it was the machine, the reformer. And I was, it was, the quad muscles they were doing funny things, but
For me, Pilates is a little bit like getting my own balance, right? It's when you have a busy day and you go to Pilates, you have to concentrate. You probably saw that doing Reformer. So that you really don't think about what happened during the day anymore.
Right.
And it helps you really relaxing. So for me, it's quite a great combination to a busy day.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, we had somebody in here the other day who was talking about building that resilience through an activity. And she was talking about yoga at the time, that's really a big practice for her that helps her after the day. You've got this little gap where you can recover, reset your mind a little bit, and then,
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, of course, I work in Basel, as you said, but I live in France, so I have to drive. It's half an hour drive, but that already helps me thinking, okay, how was the day, right? Is there anything I need to consider doing differently the next day? And is there any takeaway from the day? And then when I'm home, I can let go, right? And I can start working on others, or like just being with my husband, the dog, the kids when they're there.
Yeah.
So that helps me. But when you then on top go to Pilates and everything, it's just like, very relaxing routine.
A border into the day. Okay, well, hey, good for you, because this was, like I said, just pain in places that you didn't know. Because, I mean, I go to the gym and, you do the normal weights and things like that. But this was so much more about like keeping a balance in a certain way at the same time as flexing up. And she kept saying, okay, now don't cave in your back. I can't remember what it was called. Don't push your back all the way down. You got to keep a curve in it, but you have to collapse your chest at the same. I couldn't understand what she was saying. I was always, and then my head, like, no, your head should be, anyway.
Like everything, it takes practice, right?
Yeah, I'll go back. Good. Okay, so going back to Geneva, business administration. So you were, again, you were 18, 19 years old, and you didn't really know what you wanted to do, I guess. So it was like, I want to keep my doors open and study broadly. Okay. So you completed school. What happened then?
So while I was still at university, I did work as flight attendant during holidays and sometimes on weekends. So at that time, it was possible to be like a freelance. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
I bet. Were you long haul or
No, just Europe. That was really fun.
Yeah, anybody I know who's been working in as a flight attendant has got some stories.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's. I must say, it always sounds like people compare it to being somehow like a waiter in a restaurant or whatever. But I feel it's very different because every day you work with different people, with a different crew, if you want, right? You need to adjust. And every day is very different because your flight is different, your passenger is different, the weather is different, and so on. So I think you learn a lot about teamwork, working with different teams, adjusting quickly, and also like the fact of, you don't know exactly how the day will be, and you will adjust.
I think, I worked in hospitality, a good bit as bartender and waiter and things like that. And I often say that taught me almost more than anything else in terms of how you can de-escalate a situation or deal with a customer who's very unhappy with you in real time. Like there's no, let me get back to you via email later. It was like somebody's upset now or the food is cooked wrong.
Yeah.
So working as a flight attendant that's stressful. I would think, because whenever I just find that people on the plane tend to get people are more antsy. It's not like a restaurant where people are kind of coming, it's relaxed, there's space. They can sit, they can move around freely as they want to, whereas you're always being told, especially lately, it feels like people are always telling me, sit down, buckle your seatbelt. During COVID, it was the masks. They were very sensitive during this time. What was it like for you? Because people always say travel used to be a little bit more relaxed.
I was going to say that it's very different because from traveling maybe today, depending on, at that time there was no low-cost airlines, right? Yeah. So there was still a service on board that was included in the price, right? There was no problem with this luggage and you cannot take this size and that size. I think there was less things that would provoke some, let's say, discussions with customers. I think, yes, you always have passengers who are stressed because you don't know their personal circumstances, right? But I think my personal challenge was always to say, hey, I want people to step out of the plane and be happy, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can turn situations around with very little things, and just by being kind and maybe paying a bit more attention to those who you see are not so happy. Sometimes and start a conversation. Just allows then people to feel better.
Yeah. I actually heard a statistic the other day that said something like when people go into the plane and you have kind of business on the left and you have economy on the right, versus when you come into the plane and you have to walk through business to get to economy, those flights have much more incidents on them because people see business and then they get angry that they're sitting back in economy. Apparently, that was the stat. But who knows? I mean, I think anything in hospitality or service where you're facing people in real time is a massive benefit for any career you're going to do later on with people.
I fully agree.
Yeah,
I fully agree. It's also like you learn to talk, right? You learn to start conversations with people. You learn empathy, and you learn also like to truly listen to people and understand their needs, right? So I think there is no secondary jobs. I always feel like in every job you learn something and you can build on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that was during studies.
Yep.
Okay, and you stayed though. Or you went back in a different function? Or
correct.
Right. So you graduated, and then what happened then?
I graduated, and then I stayed flight attendant for, I think, 18 months.
Okay. So let me just jump in on that, right? A lot of people these days, when they're graduating, they come to us already 6 months before they're graduating saying, hi, I'm going to graduate in 6 months. Like, I need a job, like right when I finish. These days, people would say, oh, but you got a degree now. Why are you staying a flight attendant?
Because I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And honestly, I think life is short. We live once, right? So I think, yes, for sure, there are aspirations to have a certain job, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're enjoying an activity, it does not even need to be a job, right? Sometimes that's a unique moment in life where you can do that, right?
Right.
When you finish graduation, there is a time frame in which you can take a year and go travel. You can do a job that may not be your ultimate dream job, right? But you're enjoying it and you're learning. Yeah. Because once you're in a job, it's harder to get out or get a gap year or whatever, right? So for me, I even said it to my kids. I rather have them taking a year off after graduation and do what they would really enjoy doing, because that time will not come back.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, after I graduated, I went to Mexico for about 4 or 5 months and just took a bus around the place, and then went to Australia, and then kind of had some in-between jobs there, and then traveled Asia. And I think it was altogether like 18 months before I tried to settle back down, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I would never trade it for anything else. And I think that because you're and I ended up for most of the trip on my own, because it was supposed to be with friends, and then plans changed, and you're on your own. You're really forced to get yourself out there, and then you talk to people from other cultures, and you learn about the world. And that for me was so valuable, even later on in my career, when I would meet people and they'd say, oh, I'm from Australia or Germany or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I met these, I understood already a little bit more. And then for me coming back to Europe, it was also of big benefit. I also did it during studies. I did the Eurorail.
Yeah.
And then one more time before I started the business, me and my wife took a year. And again, that was something maybe when we retire, maybe we'll do it again. But I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And you learn, you mature, you get ideas, you get inspirations. That's so valuable.
It was, for me, I'd say it was always kind of a coming of age moment, because I was used to being this guy with my friends in my hometown. And then you all of a sudden you're out and you're like, well, wait, I could also, why not do this? Or why not be somebody who I maybe wanted to be in the past, but never really showed up that way because I was that guy to my friends or my family or whatever. So for me, it was really cool. And it was the first time I thought, hey, well, maybe I don't have to stay in Canada. Maybe there is something more than that or different. And so...
Yeah, I think it opens your eyes and maybe sometimes also change your mind on what you really want in life.
So did the 18 months as a flight attendant change your mind?
Yes, because I had a fantastic opportunity, first of all, to be a team lead, so lead a group of flight attendants, which was great, which then changed from being a flight attendant to also start working in an office space, right? So it was I was the majority of time in an office leading the people, right? So being the leader for flight attendants.
Okay, so that's coordination type of. You weren't getting on the plane anymore.
I was. Okay. It was like 2 days a month. You still had to fly so that you don't lose your expertise, right? Yeah. And also for safety reasons, right? Because you're still a flight attendant, you need to go flying sometimes.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, it was really about coaching people, making sure that if they are sick, making sure that they have the right jobs on the ground, because they cannot fly. So it was really about leading. I can't remember, it was about 50 to 60 flight attendants. And then I realized that I really was interested in HR.
Why?
Because I do care a lot about people. Mm-hmm. And I think that in the HR function, we have such an important role that we can play. And that was like eye-opening for me that, first of all, I could connect really well with people. And I thought I could have an impact in moving into fully dedicating to HR and to people.
And was that because you saw somebody else doing that job in-house, or was it like, oh, well, I like people, let me go check out what kind of people jobs there are?
No. It was, of course, I could see the jobs that in HR that were happening, what they do and how they spend their day. So for me, that was like, I think it's like if you do a bit of shadowing, right? You're not in the job, but you're looking and seeing it. So I did not know exactly what HR does before being in that space, right? Yeah. So that then said, that's actually something I could really imagine doing, and I would enjoy it. So I actually got a job in HR, and that's how I started my career in HR. So it wasn't planned, right?
Right.
It wasn't that I finished my studies and I said, I want to go into HR. It happened because I was curious about it and could observe it, and then thought I could really see myself doing that.
Well, it found you.
It found me,
so to speak. I guess when you take time to expose yourself to what it is you're enjoying, and then by natural progression of things, it's like, you get exposed to different things, and maybe you saw finance at the same time, but you just totally, it just didn't appeal, and then you find something that, but just doing what's there, right?
Exactly. And this is why I also always feel like when people say, how did you plan your career? I get that question quite often. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it wasn't planned like this. I think it is also a consequence of opportunities, of being curious to explore things.
Yeah.
And then decide, is it something I want to explore or not? And that happened then to create a sequence and be a career, but that wasn't planned the way I didn't wake up a morning and sit down and say, okay, now we'll do this and then I will do that. Like, we talk our days by architected career plans, like how do we architect careers, right? And I think if I would have done an architected career plan, probably wouldn't have ended where I am today.
Well, right. So now you just spend your time doing that, supposedly for other people, but
Yes.
you, who are the architect, actually did not have a plan, so to speak.
Not like this. Once I was in HR, I knew that this was the place I wanted to stay.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go into marketing or sales or finance or whatever.
Right.
I thought that's a place I want to stay and explore further. But I wasn't saying, oh, I want to do this job next year and that job the
Right.
year after, and then I want to be in this position. I didn't look at that. And I still don't do this today. For me, it is more about enjoying what I'm doing, making sure that what I'm doing is having an impact. I think I care a lot about having an impact. And then also learning new things, because you can do so much in the job you are without moving into a new job. I think this is where sometimes I struggle when people come after 2 years and say, I think I need to do a new job. You say, why? Because I want to do something different and this. And I say, why do you need a new job to do something different? I think jobs can be shaped, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think if people start thinking more about doing what they want to or learning something new in their job that they are in and shaping these jobs in a way that they can grow, probably there would be more satisfaction in the workforce than always thinking about, I need something different.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to remember now, I think it was Mark Bauer who came on here and he talked about that as well. He said, you're responsible for your own career. Like, of course, there's, programs in these companies and whatnot, but he said, like, no, you make your job. You go to your boss and say, I've got this great idea. Here's what I want to do, and you create, again, an impact, hopefully.
Yeah.
But he said, if you're sitting there waiting for the next promotion or someone to tell me what to do next, he said, this is not, he didn't say necessarily that you have to plan, but you can absolutely kind of shape your role and develop within it. I mean, I also did that from an early period in talent acquisition as well. I kind of said, hey, I think we could do this.
Yes.
I was coming from an agency to an in-house role and they weren't doing some of the easy stuff to get quick wins. And you're like, hey, okay. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, can you present that to the team when we have a European meeting? So, okay. And then all of a sudden, and I really found that I always thought it was, no, come in, do what you're told, and then that's it. But then when you realize, oh, actually, I can also make suggestions, I think that is a huge unlock, like when it happens.
Exactly. And I think this having the mindset of pioneering, of exploring, I think helps you in just shaping jobs in a way that they become different from how they have been before, right? Even if you look at my job today, I don't think there are so many people who have the same job that I have with all these different elements. But it was a way of shaping something that is very exciting, not only for me, but also for the teams working in that space. And at the end of the day, for the company, it's adding value, right?
Yeah.
So I think, as you're saying, people shouldn't shy away from changing the description of the job once they're in a role for a while, if they see an opportunity to have a bigger impact by making a change.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. But to jump back, so you were at, it was Swiss, right? You were at Swiss?
Right, it was Crossair that then became
Crossair.
Swiss.
Became Swiss,
Yeah.
okay. So you took a job in HR. How long were you doing that for?
I would say 3-4 years.
Okay, and when you ultimately said goodbye to the airline industry, or what was the next step?
So my husband had the opportunity to move to Spain.
Okay.
And that meant that, of course, then I had to leave the organization because, the office at that time was in Basel. So I resigned. We moved to Spain. And that's where then I started a job as a headhunter.
That's right. In theory, you're a trailing spouse, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
right. So,
Yes.
he had an opportunity, he had a job,
Correct.
you had to quit, you had to follow.
Yep.
How was it that you ended up as a headhunter?
That was also, again, not an interesting one. I applied for a position, and that was through an agency. I went for the interview, and when I was in the interview, they asked me if I would like to work for them. And it was just because of the language. So really interesting, because they had a German client, and they had no one speaking German and French. And they said, we need someone speaking German, French. You have experience in HR, not as in executive search.
Right.
But they said, we can teach you that if you're interested. And I was. So that's how I started my career there.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah,
me too. I still do.
I can. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a super interesting job, because it's about finding the right fit for a company, and it's not just screening a CV.
No, and people are, careful of my words here. No, people are sometimes strange. It's a recruitment process is so many. We have a slide that we use, which basically outlines all the things that can go wrong. Yeah. And it's such a long list of how a recruitment process breaks.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you start a process, it can be 95% chance that you will not end up signing that contract and starting in that job. Like, it's just, there's so many factors that come in from sides. And I say to the guys all the time, like, you need to control everything that you can to make sure that this person has the best opportunity. But it's fun. It's never boring. I'll put it like that. It's
never boring, and it's very exciting. And also, like, working for different clients, learning different expectations, different company cultures. And for me, it became clear that the person can have the perfect CV, but if there is no fit to the culture, that will not work.
Yeah.
Right? So this cultural fit is something that I truly learned as a headhunter.
That was for how long did you do that?
In Spain, I think I did it for 5 years.
Okay.
Even nearly 6 years.
And were you focused on pharma at that time, or was it just something?
I had pharma. I had healthcare. Not only pharma, but I had healthcare. But I had a lot. It was a lot in technology at that time.
Okay. Then that finished. What happened next?
My husband's contract finished, and then
6-year contract. That's
and then we said, okay, what do we do? Do we stay in Spain, or do we move back? And then, for more family reasons, we decided to move back to France, close to Basel.
Right.
And I started to look for a job, and then I found the perfect job.
What was that?
That was a talent scout for Roche.
Yeah.
So I knew Roche. I had never worked for Roche, but I knew Roche.
Right. If you lived in Basel.
Yeah. But I also knew it even in Spain. When I was working for the executive search company, I came across people working for Roche, so I knew the company.
Okay. Yep.
But then the fact that it would still be finding the best talent as a talent scout, but focusing only on one company,
right,
was quite attractive to me, because I said it's not about adjusting all the time to all these different companies. And also, I must say, sometimes I had to work for companies or do searches for companies that I would not want to work for at all, which is not so easy. And so I said, okay, so that's the perfect position for me. That's exactly what I want. And I can tell you, I spent probably like 3 days working on my motivation letter, on my CV. I really wanted this job.
There were no talent scouts then?
No.
This is the first time I ever heard of it.
Yeah.
When I talked to you the first time, I was like, what is this job you do? Yeah. Because at that time you had recruiters, but their job was really to accept incoming applications and screen them and interview them. And there were no companies that I knew of that were proactively approaching the market.
Exactly.
How do you shape a job like that if it's never been done before? Because you can say, oh, I just did what I did in the executive search company, but it's a very different thing because you have to deal with the internal movements, politics and whatnot. And where do you focus? Like, how do you, it's such a big organization with so many open jobs. How did you start?
Great question, Maurice, because that was exactly the questions the situations that I faced when I started, because I think it was very visionary at that time to have this position.
Yeah. Everybody copied it.
Yeah, afterwards, yes.
Anyway.
But it was also like a fantastic opportunity to, again, shape it, right? Because one talent scout for 100,000 people company, that would not work, right? So at the end of the day, we, together also with the recruiting team, right, and checking what are the biggest needs and where should we be focusing on, I think it was more my recommendation to focus also where I felt more comfortable, to be honest, to be successful, because I wanted, the idea was be successful in this position and then grow a team, right?
Right. Okay.
So I decided to focus on marketing positions.
Okay.
First of all, because I knew I can find them on LinkedIn.
And they'll talk to you.
They will talk to me. And it's also something I can understand the jobs easily. And I wouldn't want to, of course, there is a huge need in research.
Yes.
But that's a lot harder.
It's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. These people are not necessarily on, they were not necessarily on LinkedIn at that time. So if you don't have the network in academia and research, so I said, that would be really hard for me. So I said, okay, I will focus on the marketing positions. And that's how everything started.
How do you balance becoming the victim of your own success in something like that? Because if people hear about, oh, this talent scout, this Jana, she's great at finding people. And then more and more people coming, more managers say, hey, can you find people for me? And then all of a sudden you're overwhelmed and you fail to deliver and the function fails. We've seen that happen with other companies.
I don't think we had that, to be honest. I think it sounds like everyone wanted to work with me. That wasn't the case.
Well, yeah, it takes some, exactly. Who is this person? What do they do? This is something new.
Exactly. It was something new. And, that very often also leaders have their relationship with external agencies.
Yeah.
And now suddenly there is an internal, and you may not have the network, and they have the network. But the assumption is the externals know the market better.
Right.
But so it was a bit also of, yes, I had people who were open to say, okay, let's work with our internal, but not everyone. So I didn't have the problem that you just raised. I had the problem that I had to build a trust so that they wanted to work with me. And that took a bit of time. Okay.
I mean, ultimately, you've had quite a career there. I mean, I don't know when you joined in late noughties, like 07, 08, or I don't remember.
So now it's my 16th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2010.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So 2010, coming into an individual contributor, standalone talent acquisition, talent scout role to leading a team of up to 400 people. It's not not everybody that comes in at that level ends up being in this type of role. And I don't want to spend time on like each individual decision that you made. What would your guidance be for people who are in, let's say, larger companies that, have an aspiration to develop? So obviously, everybody wants to move up the ladder in some way or another. What are key lessons that you would pass on to people to say, hey, look, this is just what I did, worked for me, and that you would kind of pass on to other people?
First of all, I think it's continuously doing a great job in the position that you're in, right? Grow in the position that you're in, I think, first thing, because you can only grow, you need to be ready for your next moves, right?
Yeah.
And for that, leverage the positions that you're in to learn new skills, to keep broadening the scope that you have so that you actually can take the next step. And when opportunities arise, you're ready to do so.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily always need to be in a new job to do something more, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes it's also about broadening your scope in the role that you're in and doing a project that gives you visibility into new areas and new people. The network. I think the network is super important, right? I think people
Internally,
talk
you
the
mean?
internal network, right? I think should not be underestimated, right? I think people need to know you, right? It helps if people know you, right? To give you a chance or think about you to do to lead a project or lead something else. So I think sometimes we underestimate the power of being connected within the organization.
How would you recommend people do that? Is that purposefully saying, oh, I'm going to go make sure I have lunch with 3 different people this week? Or was it something conscious that you did? Or is it just, hey, no, I'm just going to put my hand up for stuff when things arise? Did you consciously think about it?
I think, first of all, it's something I like, right? I like to get to know people, and it doesn't matter where people sit and what they do, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. I think if you enjoy that, naturally you would connect with people. I'm also more an introvert, so it's not that I will have lunch every day with someone else, because I also need some time to really think and disconnect a little bit. So for me, this is also important. But I think it's, I do lunch networks for sure, but also just scheduling a check-in, right?
Yep.
And having a conversation with someone. And it does not need to be that there is a need for, there is a reason for it. It can just be like, let's connect. Is there something, of course I have a team, so I can say, hey, something my team can support with, is everything working well? But I think it's just keeping this network that you have helps.
I think it's also something that we underestimate, not just for our career, but also for actually getting work done. Because we've seen over and over again where, if you're not well networked, or let's say you have conflict with people, and they're not reporting to you and you need something done, it's not getting done.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
But I also think the other recommendation that I would give everyone is, don't wait for what I hear very often, people saying, it's not the right timing. It's not the right time. It's never the right time for anything, right?
True.
And people, that doesn't work. It will never be the right time. Sometimes you feel it's the right time, then there are no opportunities. Then there are opportunities not the right time. This right time thing, I'm not a fan.
Right.
I think just assume it will never be the right time. And is the opportunity and you feel like it will be a nice challenge for you, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like having kids or something,
Exactly.
Never really the right time. It's just going to work out in the end anyway.
Yeah.
I agree. So just being open to the opportunities when they come your way.
Yes, because it's hard to plan, right? It's very hard to plan these kind of things. And I hear that sometimes, I need 6 more months 6 more months to do this job, enroll. And then, but you know what? These opportunities come every 5, every 6, every 7 years. Now people are staying longer in jobs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think this planning and saying, I need a couple more months in job.
Is it really going to make that much of a difference?
Could close doors, right? So I think this is one. And then I also would say, go out of your comfort zone. I think that's when you really learn, right? I think when I, a couple of years ago, initiated this whole project with external workforce and trying to, bring the pieces together, it was very uncomfortable. Also many, I think, pieces sitting in procurement, pieces sitting in site services, every country different rules and legislations. It was uncomfortable, but it was a fantastic learning journey, right? So don't be afraid of something very unusual and different, but go for it and trust yourself, right? And I think that's really important. Also, sometimes people are insecure, don't know if I can really do it, and so on. Yes, you can. You can. If you mastered other things in the past, you will master that one as well.
Yeah. Or not.
Or not. Or not, yes.
I mean, sometimes that happens.
Yes.
But, you know, again, there's a reason and you learn something
Yes,
and, you know,
exactly.
it'll probably serve you 5 years from now in a way you never would have imagined.
Exactly. I think there is always I think the majority of companies today allow failure, right? It's not like in the past where you say, I need to be successful all the time. I think everyone understands that failure helps people to grow. Failure is natural and happens. It shouldn't happen 3 times, right?
Well, no.
But again, if you learn out of it, so I think it's a perfect time to go into the unknown or something that is not
we're all kind of
as
going
comfortable, right?
We're all going into the unknown right now.
We are, exactly. Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, actually, I wanted to do something that we haven't done before on here, but I thought if I have somebody coming in, you know, as a global head of managing, and in this case, really what I'm talking about is the talent acquisition piece, the recruitment piece. Last night, I decided, I'm a member of the Pharma group, really great group started by a guy called Mark Tiltman. So shout out to Mark. It's a great, invaluable tool. I dropped a message in there saying I'd be speaking to you today. I mean, and there's a section in this group about job seeking. And so you have a lot of people who bounce in and out of it. And it's a really great network. They actually help each other because then when ones who are in there, they got a job, then the other people are like, oh, you work there now. Can you give me some tips? So it's a great community. But I asked them if there's anything they would like to ask you. So if okay, I would go into a couple of questions from the group.
Of course.
So the first one is from Anka, and it was the most popular one, but AI. I mean,
not surprised.
No, of course, and it's on everybody's lips these days. How much is it actually involved in the recruitment process? I mean, we hear it all the time, people saying, oh, but it's just AI reading my CV, and then there's not even a human involved anymore. I mean, let's talk industry-wide from what you hear. I mean, you talk to a lot of people in other companies as well. How much is AI playing a role in the recruitment process right now?
So what I see, Maurice, is that the ones who are most benefiting from AI today are the candidates.
Well, that's not going to make you popular. Okay, well, no, explain.
So I see, honestly, fantastic motivation letters. I see CVs that are perfectly fitting the jobs.
Okay.
Right? So it's great for the candidates, but what it makes is that our talent acquisition partners need to invest a lot more time because we are not leveraging AI to pre-screen all CVs. This is still be done by experts, human experts, right? Why? Because we feel that the technology is not mature enough and we don't want to give this important step of a recruitment process in finding really the best talent for the company to a non-mature technology, right?
Okay.
So we do have our talent acquisition partners looking through the CVs, but now they come and seem to be all fitting,
right?
Which means I need to spend more time in phone interviews, in deeply reading through the CVs. It's taking longer, which then has implications. Processes are longer until people get feedback is longer, more. Also, I think ideally what we want is have the right people applying for the job so that everyone has a great experience, right? Because it's not nice to receive a decline.
No, of course not.
So now the technology is playing in favor of candidates to at least get through this first phase, but it doesn't mean that they will be more successful if they don't bring the right qualifications.
Right. And then it's not being dishonest, but it's optimizing in a way to reach a stage.
Yeah, and it just makes the process longer to be declined at the end of the day if you're not the right fit, right?
Right, okay. We also had another question from Paulina, and she asked when there are these large volumes of CVs that come in, because now, I mean, let's be honest, the state of the market is not like it used to be, let's say 5 years ago. I mean, at that time it was highly candidate driven. Now it's much more employer driven. I speak to a lot of my clients who will tell me, I put a job up for 2 days and I've got 500 applications.
Yeah.
I assume that you see the same thing.
Yeah. For some positions, we do see the same. Yes.
How does a recruiter manage 500 CVs?
Very hard. So first thing is, of course, we try to take them off as quickly as possible if we see too many applications coming in, right?
Yeah.
So they won't stay as long as people would maybe hope online.
Right.
What we do is we do ask pre-screening questions, right? That would help us.
So when people are filling out the online application, they'll have to answer questions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And questions that are of real importance for us, right? So I think sometimes it's about, are you eligible to work in the country, right?
Yes.
Or do you have this and this skills that are required to do the job,
yes.
right? So of course, candidates can say whatever they want. And sometimes they know what we expect and then they say what we expect so that they come through. But again, at a later stage,
truth comes out.
Truth comes out, exactly.
Okay.
So I think it's just a benefit to just be very honest all the time because it doesn't help.
Of course, we have CVs, and then oftentimes I'll have a CV and I'll be like, this person's perfect. And then I speak to them and I'm like, oh no, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, as you mentioned before, the culture piece is very hard. And I think what people try to do is say, if I can only just get in front of somebody, I'll be able to show them that I'm the person for the job, which happens sometimes.
What we also do that helps us a lot is these video interviews.
Right.
Right, where we record a question and we ask people to record
their
themselves.
Answers.
Yeah, that truly helps us, especially when we expect large volumes.
So does that help? I mean, I know a lot of companies use that. I know candidates are critical of it because they say, oh, can't a person take the time to speak to me? Does this allow you to actually engage with more people?
Well, it does at least allow us to engage with the right people, I would say.
Okay.
Because when people submit their answers, we already can see some people fitting more than others, right? It helps us doing a pre-screening, so to say, a pre-selection.
Okay, so you can...
And then I think some of the ones that have the better answers or that go into the direction that we want or that we expect, that these are then the ones that we would truly interview, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess then you can cover, instead of trying to pre-screen 20 people, you could actually have 30 video interviews and then really get down to the right 10 afterwards. Okay,
exactly.
Clear.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
I have a question from Casper. He asks, is the interview process these days just performative? And do you think that there's a better way that it could be managed?
I think recruitment processes exactly do exist since many, many years, right? It's not a practice that has drastically changed over the past years. We tried something out a couple of years ago where we added a business case at the beginning when we posted the job. And based on that, we decided who would be the better candidate. It was just because what we wanted to avoid, if you're really interested in a job,
you take the time.
You take the time to do a business case. And we didn't have the applicants who were just applying to everything, right? But again, it was just a lot of ask for candidates. And then we thought maybe we're missing out those who then say, I will not do all of this. So we didn't implement that. But again, is there a better way? I think, of course, the best way is once we know people, right? And sometimes people say, okay, why do companies hire so much internally?
Yeah.
Because you know your talent. You have been observing them for months or years.
Right.
They are not perfect. But we know their development areas, we know their learning agility, we know how quickly can they close a gap. Externally, this is, we don't know, right? So sometimes if it's about taking a risk or if there is a stretch, I think, you want to give a chance to someone who you know will be successful, right?
Yeah.
So again, recruitment process, is there a better way? I don't know. I think there will be better ways with AI.
Yes.
Once AI is a bit more matured,
Okay.
which does not mean it will replace a talent acquisition partner, but it will augment
Right.
the role of a talent acquisition partner, right?
Okay. Couple more.
Yeah, of course.
Now, again, this is somebody who's a little bit critical, but she mentioned to me, okay, why is it that we see companies cutting jobs and then 6 months later, they'll repost the same role back again and then rehire? This does happen, obviously, but is there a larger strategy at work here? Are companies trying to take advantage of their position in the market right now? What do you think?
Well, I think, honestly, in the current environment that we're in, with so much uncertainty, geopolitical situations, right? I think more than ever in every company, every seat counts, right?
Yeah.
So I think that everyone is being a lot more rigorous about adding FTEs into the organization. So I think that it could be that we say, or companies say, someone leaves, let's not backfill for now, and then backfill a couple of months later, right?
So prove that there's a need first internally, but the business case, I definitely need to replace this role.
Correct.
And that takes time.
I think that this is something that I can imagine is happening in many organizations. Also, like everyone is being a lot more thinking about how will jobs evolve? Yeah. What are the skills that I need moving forward? And sometimes doing more of a strategic workforce plan takes a bit of time as well. Especially when we have reorganizations. We do look into what are the skills that I need in the future. And then I post the job, right? So there may be a gap of a couple of months to get clarity and make sure we're hiring the right skills into the organization and not just backfill as is.
Last one.
Yes.
From Carol Ann. She said, what advice would you give to candidates these days to stand out in a recruitment process?
I would say to be authentic. Be yourself. I think we're looking for, first of all, the recruitment process. Let's not forget it's a two-side process. It's for the candidate to see, do I really want to work in this organization? Is the job really what I want to do? Is this the manager I can work with? Right. And at the same time, it's for the hiring manager to see, is this the person I really need? Do they bring the right skills, capabilities, mindset? So if you're not yourself in the process, you may not be hired, but you would have been hired if you're yourself, right? So be authentic and be yourself in the process. I think it's really important.
Okay.
I would also say that it's important to do a little bit of homework and really be prepared.
Yeah. I used to take it for granted that people would do that. And we often had feedback that, well, this person didn't know anything about the role, the company, what we do here. So I think that's a big one. Any small bit of effort to get to know something about what you're going to be doing it goes a long way.
Correct. I agree. And then also be ready to talk about what are your development areas, like what you're working with. So really be vulnerable. I think is something we do appreciate. Also, people really knowing themselves, right? What are my, but not like, we will not ask what are your strengths and your development areas, but it's really about bringing that into the interview so that people know that you have reflected about yourself and how the job that you're applying for will help you close the gaps that you may still have.
Okay. Is there anything else you think we should talk about that we didn't talk about?
Maybe trends?
Tell me some trends. What's going on?
No, I think, well, beyond the AI, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, I think AI, it's something that is here to stay, right? It's not
Yeah.
going away. I think another trend that I see a lot, and I also see that nobody really cracked it, is this whole shift to skills.
It's talked about a lot.
Yes, exactly. I think it's something that we also have been looking into for a couple even of years now.
Well, Novartis did that marketplace, right?
Yeah, well, marketplace we also have.
You have as well?
We
Okay.
have a marketplace.
Yeah.
But
Has it worked?
Marketplace works really well.
Okay.
It's more that it's sometimes a bit now misused, and we need to get a bit of guardrails around it. But yes, it works really well.
Maybe explain to people really quickly what that is.
So the marketplace, the way that we look at marketplace is it's an internal gig system.
It's a gig economy.
A gig economy, but internally, it's not externally, right? So where you can post an opportunity for someone to join a project or come in for a couple of months to support building something concrete, right? But it's not a job. Right. So it's something that you can do on top of your job, like a maximum. We have limited it to 60%, so it should not be a full-time activity. And that should help you, first of all, should help us to get really impactful work done quickly. But on the other hand, it should also help building skills that people want to build.
Right. How do you manage the resource then for their day job?
Well, that needs to be then, that's, of course, maybe there is another gig, or maybe that's an opportunity for someone in the team to step into something different and more complex.
Okay. So it's a chain reaction or chain effect. Like, if somebody goes off on a gig, the next person in the team can kind of step in to fill their shoes.
Correct.
Okay.
But what we have observed is that, leaders were allowing too many people. Well, people want to go on gigs because it's a fantastic opportunity to do something very new. Different. Yeah, even sometimes in another department, right? But then they were hiring contractors to backfill. I said, well, that cannot be.
and are there people that are just gigging?
No.
Not allowed?
No. Okay. That's not allowed. Okay. No. But then skills, I mean, it's a broad topic, right? If we want to shift all our practices from the way they are today.
So from competencies
to skills-based.
To skills, right?
So paying for skills, I mean, it's huge. It would be a big shift.
Right. So I know that this is a really big topic. So can you maybe, it's been on people's lips now for like the last half decade. I've been hearing, we're going to shift to skills-based recruitment. Can you explain to people what the model, the incumbent model has been up till now, and what the difference would be then with skills?
Yeah, for sure. So instead of looking at experiences and competencies, right, I think it's really looking what are the skills that I need, which then would normally open up the talent pool drastically because a certain skill can be linked to very different experiences, right?
Can you give an example of skills?
Project management is a great example of data. It's another great example. But again, what we then see is that the domain knowledge still matters, right? Because if you're doing any data job in R&D, it's very different from a data job in people and culture, right?
Yes.
So, which makes it a bit more difficult. But again, I think in areas where it is very difficult sometimes to find people, the idea of just posting a job based on skills would allow you sometimes to broaden your talent pool, right? And potentially get different people in with transferable skills.
Right.
But it's very hard. It's not so easy to make that transition. And again, I think also the way our jobs are described and everything. So it's a big change.
Yeah. Yep. No, agreed. And as you say, I don't think that anybody's really got a handle on it just yet because it is very abstract.
Yeah. And every technology that companies use have their own skills cloud or skills architectures, right? that don't communicate with each other, and sometimes then it becomes really hard. Which one will we use? And so, it's a big topic, but I think with huge opportunity. But it needs to be. I think we need to define how we can move forward without boiling the ocean.
Fair. Jana, when we close up, normally we have a little segment here called Mentorship Minute, where we would just ask you to give a quick bit of advice for somebody who is either at the beginning of their career or looking to make a next step. I mean, you've mentioned a few things already, so feel free to repeat yourself. But what advice would you give in a minute to those people out there looking to further their careers or start their careers?
So I would say for those who are at the beginning of careers, just be very curious, open your eyes, and don't lock you in immediately or think you need to lock you into a next job immediately. I think taking a bit of time, exploring the world, doing something that you're passionate about is also a very good choice.
Yep.
While you're looking for your next step, leverage the current position that you're in to continue growing your skills and your capabilities, right? Expand the job. And then there are other vehicles also to get exposure to new things. And I think it's not always a next job. It is also not always hierarchically up.
Right.
It can also be lateral. And I have seen so many fantastic examples of people who took lateral steps or even steps down that then really accelerated up, right? So I think we need to be very open-minded when it comes to career. And again, career is a journey.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to enjoy each step.
Very well said. Jana, thank you so much for being here
today.
Thank you,
Maurice. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, I think you might have enjoyed this. And if so, please, if you haven't done so already, like, follow, subscribe, and rate us where possible. I'd really appreciate that. And another thing I'd also appreciate is if you could share this with somebody you think needs to hear it. The goal here is to inspire, and we need to spread the word. So anything you can do to help is much appreciated. I'll see you in the next lab.